Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 40 for March 10th, 2017. Hey everybody, Dan Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode, our 40th of the Windows Central Podcast for the second week of March 2017. This week we'll be talking about new builds. We actually had two Windows 10 builds come out this week for the fast ring. We'll talk about Skype on Xbox, as well as some other UWP apps that are apparently coming there. I'll talk about my, I believe it's pronounced Chewy laptop. It's a 14-inch budget laptop that's only $270, and yet I totally liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. Zach's going to tell us about HP's commitment to mobile, and why do they even bother? Why are you still a Windows Phone user, which was a popular article this week. And Zach will also talk about the Surface Book i5 and his thoughts on that, which are a little bit surprising. Plus, I'll tease a little bit about next week what we'll be reviewing on Windows Central, because I'm up to my neck in laptops and PCs, and I'll see which ones you guys want to hear about next. So, Zach, how are you doing on this fine, lovely day?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Well, it's freezing cold here and snowing, which is weird because it's March now. Our weather keeps shifting dramatically. I think it was almost 70 degrees about 10 days ago, and now it's snowing outside. So I don't know, but hey, it's Friday, so I can't complain too much.
Well, I mean, surprisingly here it's a little bit warmer than usual. I tweeted yesterday it was 16 degrees and sunny, which I know 16 degrees Celsius isn't really hot compared to some other places in the world, but here it's quite warm, and I was very happy. It's been a pretty good week. Also pretty quick week. I feel like Monday was just yesterday. But we should dive straight into the first story. New builds. Microsoft released 3 new builds this week, 2 for mobile and 1 for desktop. Who says mobile is dead? They are wrong. So this week's builds are basically just entire fixed builds, which is fantastic to see at this point in development. We are about a week or so away from Microsoft finalizing the creators update. So this build is entirely fixes, lots of nice improvements. I know Dan has a bug on mobile that was fixed that he was running into quite often. Couple of known issues. One that stands out for mobile for me is that the store app may not work on at all at the point, so you can't even download apps or an update, and they say the next build will have it fixed, but not everybody is hitting this issue. At least for me, the store app works fine on my phone, and I think it's working fine on my PC. Yep, so I've not walked into it.
I'm loading up my phone, seems fine. I didn't even see that note because I haven't tried to download something, but we'll see.
So yeah, the store maybe might not be working for you, but who cares? There's no apps in the store anyway. But
they've been updating that store app a lot, actually.
They have. It's a lot nicer. I've noticed in this build, weirdly, Edge keeps crashing a lot on my PC. I don't know if that's just an isolated issue or not, but Edge is a little less stable.
Do you have extensions?
No, I don't. I don't use extensions on Edge at all. But
wow.
Basically, if you read the release notes for this build for PC, it's like 100 fixes.
Yes.
And then mobile has like 4 fixes, which is funny.
But in fairness, mobile got 2 builds this week.
True, so. Mobile did get 2 builds. And basically, all this release has been for mobile is fixes anyway. So,
right.
Overall, this is to be expected. The builds no longer name themselves Insider Preview. They are just Windows 10 Pro or Windows 10 Home, or hopefully Windows 10 Cloud once I install it and see. Also, the version number has been updated to 1703, as we've been expecting they would for quite some time. And yeah, we're basically very, very close to sign-off. Now, we have heard that next week is there's a target date next week for Microsoft in which they hope to have the creators update RTM'd, which basically means done, signed off, and ready to ship technically. But
they'll go to their grave saying RTM is not a thing anymore.
Right, it still is. There's still a day in which they compile a build and say, right, this is the build that we want to preload onto new machines with the creators update. Anyway, that date can slip, but whatever the date is next week, if they do hit the target date, then we'll have an RTM the week after usually. So insiders usually get it a few days after the RTM has been compiled and tested. This build that was released today isn't an RTM candidate based on the fact that it still has an evaluation and a time bomb, which for those of you who don't know means the build will eventually expire. Microsoft went through a phase a couple of weeks ago where they were compiling builds that weren't flight signed and were actually being compiled as if they were RTM, so they didn't have time bombs or watermarks or anything, which was odd because the operating system was nowhere near done at that point. But now we're back to the sort of evaluation builds, and hopefully Microsoft's next week compiled builds will be sort of production signed and whatnot, and hopefully the week after we'll get that build to test. So lots of exciting things happening in the Windows 10 Creators Update realm. I don't believe the Windows 10 Mobile update is going to roll out at the same time as the Creators Update. Now, I've heard April 11th is a good target date for the Creators Update rollout, and that's like it starts rollout because Microsoft likes to roll out these feature updates in waves. So some people will get on the 11th, then over time more people will get it, and eventually it'll be rolling out to everybody. But mobile usually lags behind that release date, and it just comes whenever that's ready. So I don't know. I haven't heard any dates for mobile. I guess it will just be pushed out once a few cumulative updates have been released for insiders to test.
And we haven't really heard much about Xbox either, right? Because that's on its own trajectory.
It's still Redstone 2, and once the Creators Update it signs off, it technically signs off for Xbox as well. But since Xbox like to build their builds in a different branch and whatever else, I think they still have a bit of leeway where they can work on stuff. Because I don't think the Xbox builds are going to be ready by the end of next week.
No, probably not.
I guess I don't see the Xbox update rolling out on April 11th either. That's probably later in April, maybe even May. But lots of exciting things happening right now for Windows insiders. Very exciting.
Sounds cool. I've had pretty good luck so far with mobile. I've been running on the Elite X3 and coming off of a hard reset about a week ago. So I don't know. No issues so far with me. I'm excited to try out Groove tonight at the gym. It seems like it's been getting better, but yeah, I had the issue where I'd be at the gym, and as I switched tracks and I go to adjust the volume would be locked. And like the volume slider would go up and down, but there would be no appreciable actual change, which was kind of infuriating. But that seems to be addressed now. I actually haven't had any issues. I did have issues on Surface Book, although that's now updating. I thought I grabbed those firmware updates that came out this week, but apparently didn't because it's downloading a bunch of the drivers and stuff. And I think those drivers and firmware are not a coincidence. I think that's preparation for RS2 because I had some severe issues with power and sleep in my Surface Book where it wouldn't wake up from sleep and there would be battery drainage, which was weird too because the release previous to that was totally fine. It actually ran exceptionally well. I was like, wow, this is, I might actually start putting some more devices. And then this one came out and had issues. So now I'm updating today's release and hopefully, fingers crossed, with the new firmware and stuff, I'll have no problems. And I finally got my Surface base back from Mark, who borrowed it for like 6 weeks. He's supposed to do a video on showing how well it works as for editors, for video people. And he never got around to doing the video. I'm like, just give it back. You're going on vacation for 2 weeks. Just give it back to me. Like, I kind of missed it. So, but it's kind of nice. We're coming around to the tail end here of the Redstone 2 release. As people did notice, there is a 3D View app that's now pre-installed on mobile. That is part of the whole 3D push. It's not the camera app that allows you to scan in objects into 3D. This just allows you to view the 3D objects from their website and the other things that people create. It's kind of a neat thing. I think it's actually kind of working now on this latest release today because now the buttons look like they actually do something. But I have to give that a go. So that's kind of cool.
The Skype preview on Xbox was odd because it was always showing up on the Xbox dashboard. And
right. Yeah, and then it would fail to install.
Right, yeah, it was, and now it's finally here, which is very nice.
Yeah, so let's talk about that quickly. So we installed Skype. I haven't still tried a video call on it, but it does totally work with the Kinect camera as you would expect it would. It was funny last night on the couch because as my phones were going off, Kevin Michaluk was messaging me on Skype. And then I was sitting with my girlfriend watching TV, and all of a sudden, like, the messages started like popping up on the TV. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." That can also be very dangerous. It's kind of weird having like an instant messenger kind of thing show up on your TV because TVs are communal, and you can have people over, and who knows what people are going to send you. So there's also some just weird security things I feel like on Xbox because it's like anyone can, if you use the auto login thing. like someone could just load up your OneDrive and just start going through your photos and Skype and all that kind of stuff. I feel like we need a Windows Hello feature for some aspects of Xbox, because it's kind of weird how they can go into that and access your files.
Doesn't Xbox already have that with the Kinect, in the sense that when you walk in front of it, it sees you and logs you in?
Yeah, but then it doesn't log you out. And like you can also set it to auto log in on their account,
right? Yeah.
So it doesn't actually need to check.
Oh, right, yeah. So,
which is a little bit more convenient when you think about it. And so, but once it's logged in, anyone can do anything, right? You walk out of that room for a few minutes, someone can just come in and start going through your Skype.
And buying every game ever. My goodness.
Yeah, or buying all your games. So I feel like, they already have seems like the infrastructure for this set up in Windows 10. So I'm hoping for, like even on OneDrive on your phone, right? Like you can set it so in order to access it, I think you got to use the Windows Hello feature to access the files. That'd be kind of cool to have that on Xbox. So someone loads of my OneDrive.
I mean, it wouldn't be hard for them to rebrand it, would it? It's technically the same stuff. It's like it sees you, it knows who you are, and it signs you in.
Right.
So I'm surprised they haven't rebranded that already. I don't know if they would call it Windows Hello.
I think it's part of a framework. I'm sure they would call it Windows Hello, but I think they need to. It's a large framework that they need to actually probably port over and bring over to Xbox. They should. But how cool would it be to have a fingerprint reader on an Xbox controller?
That would be fantastic. My goodness, that's a great idea.
Right? You need it actually in the control. Like not even fingerprint, you can have it in the grip. So it reads your grip.
That's amazing. Or even the fingerprint idea is great, because games could take advantage of that. Say like spy games and stuff, when you're like hacking into mainframes, like scan your fingerprint and it comes in. That'd be amazing.
Right.
A new element. That'd be great.
Yes, it's a free idea for you there, Microsoft. Yeah, I was gonna say also the OneDrive app I think is somewhat new. I think at least there's the newer version that's available. But yeah, a lot of changes to the core apps that we always get this, and we've mentioned this before with, besides the big core OS changes with these Redstone releases, are the core apps, which get their own updates. In fact, I'm finally getting my focused inbox on PC now. So for a while, I'd get it on a PC, and now I'm getting it on all my PCs. It's all come through. So all my Outlooks now all have the focused inbox. And I should point out, because people go, there better be a way to disable it. There is a way to disable it. Microsoft was already put that in there with the feature. You can just go under the reading settings and just slide it and turn it off. So don't worry about that. Now, it's not on mobile yet, but I'm sure it will be. This is still kind of looks like an A/B testing with only a small group of people actually having access to it. And it seems like it's tied to the back end of your Outlook account. But kind of nice to see that feature. That was a feature, of course, that was part of that other email. Was it Sunrise? I forgot who it was that they bought that was on iOS and Android, and they slowly started merging those features into their own Outlook brand, and now it's coming finally to Windows 10. Kind of neat there. I also tweeted out this week some Cortana A/B testing that they're doing, where at the top there are like tabs now that are like jump lists. So like you can quickly jump to entertainment news or like tickets or sports. So instead of scrolling all the way down and going through that whole Cortana list, you can just hit the little jump buttons and it'll just jump to that section, which I thought was kind of cool. I only have it on a couple of my PCs though, so it's not all of them. But a lot of A/B testing stuff kind of going on, and that'd be kind of good because Cortana to me hasn't really evolved enough recently. But yeah,
I've just thought of another thing we should probably mention: ads in File Explorer.
Yes, this was. Some people get really bothered by this.
It's
Zach and I are both in the scheme of things, I don't know. I feel like we live in a world where there are just ads everywhere as it is. And I kind of get there's two types of ads, right? There's ads for external third-party stuff, which is annoying. We don't like that. And then there's ads for when I have Verizon Fios. So when I watch cable, I get a lot of Verizon commercials, and I get that it's Verizon advertising their own service on their service. It's annoying, but at the same time, it's I kind of expect that to happen. AT&T will send you a text message once in a while about their new plans. It's even worse actually on Samsung phones on Android, where it actually shows up in a notification center as an ad. And that's what's happening here. So I noticed it this week when I set up a new computer on File Explorer. It actually had like a little pop-up the first time you open it. It said, hey, you could have more space here with OneDrive at $6.99 a month or whatever. And then you can click it and get rid of it. And you can actually disable it like under settings and stuff like that. I don't get why. I mean, I don't know. No one buys Windows 10.
Right.
And I get it when you buy a computer, technically there's a license fee that's in that cost. But what I mean also is like in 2 years from now, when Windows 10 Redstone 7 is rolling out, how much are you going to pay for that update?
Nothing. Like there's no more cost associated with Windows 10. Even when you buy a PC, it's built into that cost. And not to change from like what Mac OS was doing, right? They were doing for years with their updates where it would be like $25 or whatever I think it was to get the yearly update. And Microsoft, of course, used to do the big bi-yearly updates and they would cost money. And there's no more cost anymore. So it's like everything is about services. And I feel like we're living in this world where everybody wants everything for free and then they act shocked when a company is like, we're going to try to actually offer you our services that are optional. And it's like, people are like, how dare they? I mean, the ad in File Explorer itself, I wouldn't even call an ad. It's like a recommendation or just...
right.
It's basically, for those who don't know, in File Explorer now, just below the ribbon UI and above your folders, something of OneDrive right now is a little OneDrive pop-up will be like, hey, you can turn on OneDrive and take advantage of the cloud or something like that. And there's... yes, no, or there's an X button. You just press it and it goes away and you don't have to deal with it ever again. It's not going to keep popping up. It just goes away. It's not like Microsoft is like selling,
shareware
computers.
Or something.
Yeah, or like, Norton antivirus. They're not selling anything that they don't make. And even so, I don't think they'd ever like sell like directly. I think they'd more sell services rather than products to you through the ads built into Windows 10. So ads aren't a new thing to Windows 10 either. There are ads everywhere. If you look in the start menu, you get those pre-installed sort of apps. They're technically ads. They're more like, you tap on it takes you to the store. You've also got those suggestions in the apps list. That's also technically an ad. You get that little pop-up for Office. It says try Office. That's technically an ad. It's like, this isn't a new concept to Windows. And it's not even a new concept to the industry.
Right.
iOS does this, Android does this, Chrome OS does this, OS X does this, the least amounts, but it still has it. Like, it will tell me that I should expand my iCloud or buy an upgrade.
Yeah. iOS is like, I got a notification the other day, which was hilarious, saying that I almost used 5 gigs of my iCloud. And I found that odd because I was like, what? Like, how am I using that much? Like, what's going to my iCloud? I didn't even have any idea that stuff was being backed up to it, let alone I was nearing my 5 gigabyte limit. So that kind of, freaked me out. But, yeah, these are just like, I mean, I don't know how else. We're living in a very complex world now. Mm-hmm. And this idea of like, all these companies have services like Office, which is, you don't buy Office anymore. You basically rent it. You have OneDrive where you're renting space. I don't know how companies are supposed to keep customers, aware of these things and options. I don't know. It's a complex issue that like marketers and companies all have to deal with all the time, which is like, how do you tell people about your product? And so even the app suggestions, I don't really mind. There's a new one now called Houzz, Houzz, that comes pre-installed in the latest ISO images for Windows 10. And it's just, you can of course uninstall it just like any other store app and everything. And it's actually a neat app. It's for finding stuff for your house. And it's a pretty popular company. I had no idea this app even existed. And I'm like getting into that process of like looking to buy a house. And so like, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. Like, I had no idea that thing was there. And I actually kind of appreciated the fact that it existed. So, I don't know. I feel like people are just sort of overreacting to the stuff. I made a lot of fun of it on Twitter because, all the Windows users are like, start, throwing up their hands like, I'm going to Linux. And like, no, you're not.
Also,
okay?
Some Linux distros also have ads in them. It's just the thing. Right. It's not the end of the world. It's not like you can no longer use your PC because there's ads in it.
I just find it funny that people are like, I'm going to punish Microsoft by going to Linux. And like, yeah, Microsoft isn't the one who's going to suffer here. It's going to be you.
Exactly.
because now, I mean, don't get me wrong, Linux has its role in the world. I'm fine with Linux existing. I'm appreciative of like communities and people working on it and all that. I think it's a neat thing. It's not a solution for consumers though. Like people who are like, I just want to buy a laptop or a tablet and use it. Like it's a small nightmare. And if you want to buy like extra peripherals, like anything by Razer or like, cool stuff that's coming out, like good luck with trying to get the drivers to work in Linux. It's a whole nightmare. For a certain segment of people, Linux will always be an option. I'm glad it's there. It's a hobbyist OS, For regular consumers though, the idea of like me telling anyone, like my friends who are like not into anything I cover, yeah, try Linux. They would be like, it's a nightmare. Are you kidding me? Operating systems are super complicated. And as Windows 10 is like such an improvement, but it's still a complicated OS because Microsoft has to constantly balance this, thing between people who want to hack everything and manipulate everything aspect of the OS and people who are just like, I just want to check email, browse the web, and install some apps. And that's a hard thing to balance. We see it all the time in settings. People want, fine granular control over all these little tiny things. And Microsoft's at the same time trying to make it simple, so.
And it's important to remember that all of these ads, you can turn them off. They're entirely optional. They're on by default because that benefits Microsoft, obviously. But if you really hate them to the point at which you just cannot stand looking at them anymore, you can jump into settings and turn off a few toggles. You can turn off the show occasional apps in start menu, which I also believe turns off the search suggestions as well for apps. Then you've also got the turn off helpful tooltips, which turns off the Office pop-up and stuff. And I'm pretty sure that also turns off the File Explorer one as well. If it doesn't, there's also an option within File Explorer itself. It's kind of buried, but it is in there that you can turn off the tooltips within File Explorer as well. It's all optional, and you can all turn it off if you really don't want it. But I'm personally, the only one I turn off is the occasional show suggested apps and stuff, because I don't like that in the apps
I
list.
turn that off too. Yeah, that's the only one I really do. Just because, like, we're kind of like prosumers. We're generally aware of apps out there. So,
But I don't care about the File Explorer one. I don't really care if Office is trying to sell itself to me. I already have Office anyway, so I'm totally cool with it. And I think everyone just needs to calm down.
That's the internet. It's just, it's also the same thing. This is like another huge problem that companies have with their products. This is why companies basically try to beg you to review their stuff, which even like I find annoying. Sometimes I'll buy something off of eBay and someone's like, could you leave us a review? And it's just like, leave me alone. I bought your product. But the reason is simple. It's because people are way more likely to complain about stuff on the internet than to praise things. Like if you're happy with your laptop or tablet that you just bought, like the chance of you're going to go like, I like this thing, I'm going to go out of my way today and write a couple paragraphs sharing that. Like most people won't do. What they're going to do is if they like have issues or a problem or, they got like a bum device, they're going to go on and complain because they're mad. And it's a stronger motivator for people. It's the same thing in politics. People are like really upset about something, they'll go protest. When things are okay, it's like, why vote? Like, I'm going to watch TV tonight. So it's just a common thing in life. That's why companies do these kind of things. It's a tough problem, like I said, to get you out there. You see it in the store too. Developers have this problem where it's like, they release a version of the app, someone's not happy with it, 1 star. It's like, okay, now, in fairness, like if you really didn't like it, fine. Then the developer is like, okay, I'm going to fix it. I made it better. Here's the new version. I addressed your problem. And that reviewer is like, all right, I'm leaving my review 1 star. And it's like that person doesn't go back. And you can always go back and just update your review. And people are not going to do that. So now that guy, he's got 1 star forever on his app. Even though he was responsible. And
my favorite thing, and the thing that I sort of comes to mind often when it comes to the Windows Store and 1 starring stuff is, I think it was Gears of War, one of the big games that came out on the Windows Store. The Windows Store kind of sucks, and with big game downloads and with lots of people downloading it, the game would just fail to download completely. And in the reviews for the first at least 3 hours of that game being available on the Windows Store, it was 1 star, doesn't download. How is that the game's fault? It's Windows Store issue. It's Microsoft's issue. But it's not, because then that game has like 1,000 1 stars because of Microsoft's own app rather than the game itself. You know what? We should get rid of the rating system. It sucks.
It kind of is. It kind of does. Actually, I had this theory the other day. I'm like, the internet got ruined once we decided to have comments. Like, once we decided everyone should have a voice. It's like now it's starting to become super elitist. I'm like, you know what? Not everybody should actually have a voice because some voices are really bad. But that's like this weird, this idea of like democratizing everything, which sounds really good. But now it's like, this is the same issue with media. Now we're getting off on a tangent. But now it's like, look at this problem we have with fake news. I tweeted a story the other day with PolitiFact where they interviewed this kid. He was 27. He literally created a fake news website almost as a joke. He's like, I want to see how bad this thing really is. And just literally made up ridiculous headlines. And like he had like millions of views within 2 weeks. And it was just like, that's the world we're living in right now. And it's a very contentious place. Like I said, people go online, complain about everything, but then they don't praise things that they like. And that's what we're seeing with this ad thing, It's not even a lot of people. Actually, no one on Twitter actually even brought up to my attention and complained about it. And so you see it like in the Reddits and sub forums with the real power user people, the people who threaten I'm going to go to Linux, which are not normal people. Like if you even know what Linux is, you're probably, already in a higher level of knowledge for computers. But yeah. And then I made fun of the Linux people because the joke about Linux, of course, it's like, I'm going to switch to Linux. Okay, which distro are you going to use? And that turns into a whole thing. People are like, you want to use Mint? No, you want to use this. No, that one's terrible. It's just
and then if you choose Ubuntu, everyone laughs at you. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't use Ubuntu because it's too consumer friendly. Which is funny because I'd say Ubuntu is the closest to being a consumer friendly Linux.
Right.
It's like it tries to be sort of. Forget about the terminal and all the grossness behind the scenes.
Give you a really nice UI,
yeah.
Right.
I think people saying switch to Linux are just, they have to be joking, right? No one has ever looked at Windows and seen an ad and gone, right, this is the day I'm switching to Linux, and actually switched to Linux. No one's ever done that.
I think once you start seriously considering Linux, you start growing a ponytail. It just like starts naturally coming in. You're like, I need my hair really long, but I want a ponytail to look neat too. And like, the beard starts coming in, and you're like, I don't need to shave.
Offending 500 people right now.
Yeah, it's all a good jest. I like you, Linux people.
Should we move on
to people who hack phones? Listen, same people who hack phones. People know me, Malatesta77 back in the day. I used to make phone ROMs. I used to do it on PVC Geeks. I made it for lots of devices. I appreciate that stuff. I just at the age now I don't care. So, Okay.
Should we move on to your laptop review?
Oh, the Chewy. Okay, I got two laptops.
Chewy,
right
where's Han? That was a terrible joke. I apologize.
Yeah, it really was. That was the first comment, I believe.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. I got too many devices here. I don't know if I should put that on top of the Surface Studio. I'll just show it quickly here. Yeah, this is the Chewy. So go read the review. We'll be doing a video review of this too. I wanted to have that for this week, but Mark is going to the Philippines for 2 weeks, and so we don't have that ability to do it. I'm not going to do it myself. But interesting company out of China. They we've reviewed their tablet before, and they have a few other devices that are coming out. And it reminds me of what's happened with Android, where Android for a while, they were always like the Chinese manufacturers coming out. And they were interesting, but they were always sort of cheap, and they didn't compete with like Samsung and everything. And now we have like, Alcatel and Huawei and all of them, and they're becoming like serious competitors. And I feel like this company is sort of doing that with the PC stuff. So this laptop you can go buy for about $270, which is pretty affordable for most people. I agree. Someone said, $300 is still expensive for people in the world, and they got offended, even though I did not say if you can't afford a $300 laptop, you're poor. I didn't say anything like that. I understand that everybody has a lot of money. That's why I purposely reviewed this when they offered it to me. I was like, $270, there's a lot of market for this kind of device. The problem is, and this is regardless of your thoughts about rich people and $1,000 laptops, once you start hitting $300 and below that, you start getting some serious quality control issues, and just it's not enjoyable. And some of that is just cost, but some of it is also just companies who are just trying to cut every corner. This is the first $270 PC I've used where I'm I felt like this was a borderline ultrabook, high end, where I could actually use this, and I didn't mind using it all. And Part of that's because it's a 14-inch IPS display, which you rarely see in this price range. IPS is way better than TFT, which is what you usually get. Those are the ones where you've seen them in the stores. HP uses them too, where you look straight on and it's like okay looking. It's washed out, sure, it's a little milky looking. But then as soon as you move your head a couple angles, all of a sudden you can't see the image anymore. IPS displays are really popular because they have great viewing angles. The color contrast doesn't change as much when you tilt your head. This uses that. Now, it's not the best IPS display I've ever seen, but it's still way better than TFT. It has thin bezels, and it looks like a MacBook Air clone, but it's actually kind of nicer looking because it's, I think, white and black, which I think looks really nice. The keyboard was actually really good. Like, I was using this keyboard like, this is a keyboard I would use every day. Now, the trackpad gets a little rough, and trackpads are always rough, I think, on the low-end devices. I didn't hate it, but this was one area I think they could improve upon, but it's still better than, I mean, the fact I could still do 3-finger, 4-finger taps, 3-finger swipe-ups, and still get all the Windows 10 gestures impressed me. That's one area where sometimes you see this stuff start to fail big time. It doesn't have a lot of memory, but you can actually, and my friend Brett House, who also reviewed it, by the way, at Nantech, if you want to go read his... his reviews crack me up because they're like my reviews on steroids. Like he did like 9,000 benchmarks of it and like treated this like it was like this crown jewel laptop. But it's a really good read. But he also he thinks it's the best 14-inch laptop in this price range. But he says you can actually replace the internal memory with like an M2 slot SSD. So you can actually buy an SSD that would cost more than this laptop and put it in this laptop. But it was a really good performer. A lot of it comes down to the fact that they actually use the new Celeron processor, which is better than Atom. I'm not a fan of Atom. I know you're not a fan of Atom. They have their role in the world, but they're still like, that's where you start to hit that like, okay, this is really not feeling good. This felt good. Running, Windows Store apps, light computing, Office, even the web. This felt like a regular laptop to me, and that's impressive. Even the internal memory wasn't that slow, and they used pretty good RAM too. I don't know. This was a cool device. Like, this is the kind of device that where I'm used to my $2,000 laptops. I was just like, I could actually use this. Like, this is something I could use and actually enjoy it. And I had zero issues recommending it to people. It's just impressive that for $270 that like companies are coming out with this kind of stuff.
It's got a 1080p screen, right?
Yes, it's full HD. It's matte.
That's crazy on a sub $300 laptop because you just don't see that at all. Like the HP Stream 11,
right? Because they usually use 720, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a barely 720p screen. So and it's a TFT panel, which is ugly. But yes. I really liked the Stream. I like low-end laptops as well. I'm a big fan of seeing how companies try and cut corners whilst trying to maintain a quality product. And like you say, most of the time they fail at maintaining a quality product. Even the build is rubbish, the screen's awful, the processor's bad. But by the sounds of it, they've got basically everything right.
And the build quality was good. This thing doesn't creak. Like it doesn't all the seams lined up. Like there's just like nothing wrong with it. It feels solid. I love the 14-inch size too. So that's the other thing. A lot of times you get these devices, they're like 12-inch screens, 11-inch screens, and you get to that weird like this thing is super tiny. 14-inch for me, 14, 15-inch are like the ideal sizes. 15-inch are big, but now they're the high-end stuff are making 15-inch the size of 14, so that's really kind of cool. But this is like a 14-inch that's really compact. It's not much bigger than the XPS 13, and that's like such a cool size to have with thin bezels. Now the web camera was pretty terrible, but it worked. I don't know. Everything about this was just like a cool device. I feel like we're getting to that point now. These companies are getting real serious about creating these like quality low-end tablets and PCs, and they have another tablet coming out that they're going to send me for reviews. And I don't know. I like seeing this stuff because, like I said, I'm totally aware, that I can't go out and just recommend. That's why when people go, "What's the best laptop?" I'm like, Surface Book performance based, but it's like I totally understand how most people just can't afford a $2,600 laptop. Like that's like a real expensive device. So. That's why you have to break it down. It's like, okay, well, what's your budget? Because that's why we do that's on Windows Central, by the way. We have a bunch of guides on what's the best laptop in this price range. And, I encourage you to go check that out because, things vary. But the good news is, and Zach can attest to this too, is these companies are getting pretty good now at creating quality components.
I'm pretty excited to see what Windows 10 on ARM brings to the table for low-end devices, because you got to eventually Snapdragon processors will be powerful enough, even at the low end, to run Windows on ARM. And when that happens, because low-end Snapdragon processors are pretty cheap, right? They're not incredibly expensive. It will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how, because if you pay less for the processor, then for the same $300 price tag, you can get more elsewhere, like a better screen or a better keyboard or a better build overall. So it'll be interesting.
And also smaller, thinner devices. Right. Yeah, this one's fanless too, so it can get really hot if you're gaming, but
Yeah, $300, no point gaming on it.
Right. I mean, for playing casual games on it, which I think is what most people would want to do, it's totally fine. But yeah, this is kind of like, I imagine the performance between the Celeron and like the new Snapdragon 835 would be pretty similar. What's going to be interesting is on the threading and cores and all that stuff, how it handles larger apps, as well as the GPU differences. I think will be interesting. That's something we'll have to kind of wait and see. But that's going to be real interesting to see those two worlds basically collide. I think the real benefit ARM will be the smaller boards that'll be required, and that'll allow the companies to put in bigger batteries. I should mention battery life on this was pretty good. It wasn't amazing, but I would say between 6 and 8 hours depending on the screen brightness. And that's the thing, the screen brightness. So like you can basically run this at 100% indoors and like won't be blinded by it, which if you have a high-end laptop, is definitely not the case. I run most of my high-end laptops at 20 to 30% indoors. For one, I don't like looking at light bulbs, but two, they're just bright panels. So this isn't a bright panel, but this is where you start getting, the contrast. But still, it's a IPS display in a sub $300 laptop. I think is one of the first times I've seen that, and it's just a really nice change to have.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely much prefer an IPS 1080p panel in the stream. Fortunately, not. It's an ugly thing.
Yeah, TFT is rough. Like TFT is just like
so bad.
Yeah, you don't get much color contrast. And the color contrast on this too. It's like it's better than TFT. It's definitely not like $1,000 panel.
I mean, but you probably know that going in when you buy a $300 laptop.
You can see the photos. I took a lot of photos for this thing. Go check it out. The display is good. Like this is a display I could live with, and that's saying a lot, for me. I didn't freak out over it, but cool stuff. We'll be doing more of theirs. If you guys have devices, for low end stuff like that, definitely give me a recommendation on Twitter. I can't promise I'll review everything. We're getting a lot of offers now to review laptops, which is a good problem to have. In fact, I have waiting downstairs the new Dell Precision 5540, I want to call it. All you need to know, it's basically the business version of the XPS 15. So it uses different types of processors and GPUs in it, but it has a 4K panel and all that. So I'll be taking a look at that, obviously comparing it to the current XPS 15 device out there. I also have XPS 27, the big 4K thing with the speakers in the front that was announced at CES. That's waiting for me at the office. I got to unbox that. That's going to be really exciting. I had the original XPS 27. In fact, I have it in my living room right now. Real curious to see the improvements there. I might have to actually lug that to the office just so I can do a side-by-side comparison, because I'm the only one that's gonna be able to do that. That's the difference with Windows Central, by the way, guys. I use these products. I have a whole army of laptops because I keep them. I try to keep them, but I'm not like these sites that just review it for a few days and then throw it away and send it back to the company.
I do. I try to keep all of my laptops as well. Eventually, after like a year, I'll maybe sell one or two or give someone something, but I try to keep, I've still got my Surface 3, which I now only use for Windows 10 cloud builds, which is a good use for it to have, because beforehand it wasn't really doing much because it's just too slow for me. I just cannot deal with it. That,
because I got my Surface 3 over here. I got to charge it up. And then we talked about that last time. It's going to take me 4 hours to charge it.
It takes forever. So
it really is painful. Actually, it's funny because someone mentioned the Lumia 730 and 735 the other day. I was like, I have that on Verizon, but I hadn't turned it on in months. So I went and then I've been updating it, the OS, putting Windows 10 on it and everything like that. Just like the charging is so micro USB. I'm just like, I cringe at it. You don't appreciate this stuff. Once you go to USB fast charge, everything changes. It's just
like when I went, because I was using Windows Phones 950 Elite X3, I switched to iPhone 7 for a month to do my iPhone 7 Microsoft ecosystem post.
Right.
The thing that got me more than anything, which I didn't think it would, was the charging. It's still not a fast charger. It's Lightning, so it's whatever Apple uses.
It's better than most like non-fast charge devices, but yeah, it's definitely not USB.
It's still, I have to remember to put it on that charge at night before I go to bed, whereas with the Lumia 950 or the Elite X3, I could leave it off charge, and in the morning, just plug it in, and it's done in 20, 30 minutes. So you can't do that with the iPhone, even today with the iPhone 7. Not yet, at least.
The Elite X3 and the Idol 4S both are USB Qualcomm Fast Charge 3.0, which is... It's just so good. It's just like, and that's the funny thing now with Qi Wireless charging. Qi Wireless is convenience. I use it at my desk here because I have the vertical chargers. I just plop it on there. But like Qi is just like so slow now compared to fast charge that there's that sort of difference. There's also the issue with like in the car now, the Elite X3 is such a powerful device that it can drain the battery faster than a wireless charger can recharge it. Which makes those, the Nokia charger not an ideal thing. Now, if you're just putting the phone in your car and traveling with it, you just want it up there for alerts, it'll be fine. You'll gain some charge. But if you want to use it for GPS, you're going to want to plug it in. It's just funny times we're living in.
There was a company at Mobile World Congress. Mobile World Congress. I can't remember the name of the company, but they were demoing some new quick charge technology. That took a battery from 0 to 100% in less than 20 minutes. And
which starts to get scary because, everybody thinks of Samsung and their battery woes.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm excited to see that go mainstream. Because imagine just...
What's cool
basically, what that does is it sort of eliminates the need to charge. Because it's like, I just plug it in, it's done, basically.
Well, it's like, I do this now with my Fitbit Blaze, which gets good battery life, but it's not, it's every couple of days. But I just put it on the charger while I'm in the shower, and that's enough to top me off every day, and that's kind of cool. You don't have to really worry about it. There's also laptops now are coming with faster. HP does this a lot in their devices, and that's one reason why, I kind of like recommending them. You can do fast charge. Lenovo's doing it now too. The X1 Carbon's going to have fast charge. This new Samsung laptop, which I'll be reviewing soon, has fast charge. And it's kind of weird. Be like in 30 minutes, you can basically get 50% battery or something like that. That just changes the thing. Actually, let me segue into laptops. Talk about high ends. New Samsung Notebook 9 15-inch. They also have a 13-inch version of this. Again, I've had the previous version of this laptop. Samsung's a weird company when it comes to laptops because they're hard to find. You can sometimes get them in Best Buy. They're limited to markets. We're talking about like how you kind of want this, but it's not probably in the UK because Samsung doesn't sell their laptops worldwide. That's kind of a shame. They still make some of the best hardware around. This thing is stupid, and stupid good, I mean. It's like, it's a cross between the XPS 15 and the Spectre 15, X360. Now, it's only a full HD display, but it's LED and has HDR built into it, which is pretty crazy. Non-touch, so sorry, folks. They put a fingerprint scanner in there, which works very well. It has, of course, their PM961 SSD in there. That's basically the 960 EVO, so super fast storage. It's got a Intel dual-core Core i7, the 7500U, so it's one of the latest Kaby Lakes out there. The thing is, it weighs 2.6 pounds, and it's a 15-inch laptop. This is borderline too light, which it's weird saying, but it feels hollow. It almost slides off your lap. You can also open the display one-handed, which is really cool. But like the materials that they're using in these things now are just like so insane. It's like that's to put that in perspective. Now the HP Spectre is 4.4 pounds. The XPS 15 is 4.5 pounds. This thing is 2.6 pounds. And this has also the GT 940MX GPU in it. Not a huge performer, but I tell you, it helps with a full HD display. You can do some gaming on it, stuff like that, and that gives you that little extra boost. But what a crazy laptop. And it's just like, and the battery life, by the way. Like I actually opened it up. You can only replace the SSD in there. There's nothing else you can replace. But there's like, one of the reasons it feels kind of hollow is because it kind of is. Like there's like a lot of empty space in it, which made me think like they could have put a bigger battery in there I'm getting ridiculous battery life. This thing gets at least 10 hours of battery life.
Wow.
Which gets to the point now, it's like if you put a bigger battery in there, you're just driving up the cost and making it heavier. After like 8 or 9 hours, I don't think it really matters. And plus it's got fast charge, so you can just plug it in, quickly charge it up. So I'll be reviewing that over the next week or two. I myself have a couple other things I got to get to. But it also makes me a little sad because I know a lot of people aren't going to consider this, either because it doesn't have a touchscreen or it's because it's harder to find, or I don't think it's going to just get as much. Samsung devices just don't get as much media attention for laptops, which is strange.
I don't think they do a good job at marketing them. That's why I don't really ever see ads for Samsung.
Yeah, I
laptops.
agree. It's a weird division, and as a division, I think they've talked about stop making laptops and all this, and they still keep releasing ones, and I'm appreciative of it because they are displays. I mean, Samsung makes really good displays, and this is it's LED, so it's not complete OLED, but it's awesome looking. It's got thin bezels too. It has this HDR ability, which you just turn on and leave on. And it's a really cool thing. Like, video looks really, really nice on it. It's only full HD. There's also, did you see that thing I tweeted about, that security feature it has? So Samsung does something cool. They do some really neat under the hood, like, tuning of this. One of the things they do, because this is more geared towards business people, is one of the security features is it could snap a photo of you, of someone trying to log in who entered. If you enter in a wrong password, it'll snap a photo. It'll email the photo to you at a pre-specified email address. And then when you finally do log in properly, it actually gives you a little notification that pops up. It goes, hey, someone tried to, log into your laptop. And it's a little cool thing too when you turn it on. And it's the login screen. Below the camera on the display, it actually says like security cam running or something like that. So you actually kind of know this thing is like checking you out. I was just like, when I showed it on Twitter, people are like, Microsoft should just build that into Windows 10. I kind of agree. It's a pretty nifty feature. It also does funny things like you can put it into cool mode. So it runs cooler, which is basically just battery saver. I'm just like, this thing, like, you never hear the fans. I'm like, why do you need cool mode? I don't know.
I really want one. I'm annoyed that I can't get one. I was hoping I'd be able to pre-order one because they were on back order for a long time.
Right, yeah. They just finally came in stock now and are just shipping. I don't know. You have to look into see if Samsung UK, maybe reach out to their PR.
Yeah.
The problem for you, of course, is just the pound sign, right? You have a dollar sign.
Yeah. And the fact that the enter key on the models is long ways, whereas ours is vertical. Which makes much more sense. Don't argue with me.
Okay. If you say so.
Let's move on to our next story. So there was a report, or a few reports this week, that claimed Microsoft were planning to release a new phone this year. Before the Surface phone, kind of like a holdover device that would release with Redstone 3 and Seashell and be with the latest specs, I guess. It doesn't look like that's actually happening from what we've heard.
I get the rationale for this.
Right.
I liked the rationale.
It's kind of like a holdover device for Surface Phone, which would eventually, when it ships in either 2018 or 19, according to the report, would run Win32 and full Windows 10. Now,
yeah,
I don't see the benefit in running Win32 on a Surface phone. I would assume that whenever Microsoft does release the Surface phone, it will be a Windows 10 mobile or C# device rather than a full Windows 10 device. But the device coming this year, we don't think is happening. We don't think Microsoft is going to release another Lumia or another Windows phone that isn't the Surface phone. And we don't even expect the Surface phone to come this year. Maybe late, but I'm not expecting it. Maybe late this year, but I'm not holding my breath.
Some of the rationale that was given with this was that they basically want to kind of test the water / have a device out there that you can get feedback on with some new features. And I totally kind of get that. The idea of because right now, it's like, 1.6% in the US or Windows Phone. So it's obviously a small amount. So I kind of get the idea of getting Noel ready by, adding a little bit more devices to the mix. But that would be such a weird thing for a couple of reasons. One, from my understanding, they got rid of a lot of the phone hardware guys. It doesn't mean that the Surface team isn't working on anything kind of like this. But, we've talked about this before, whether it's actually going to be a Surface phone or like this, what I call Surface Pocket, like a Pocket PC thing that can actually make phone calls and do that kind of stuff. So I don't know, the idea, they don't really have the Lumia team is not just sitting around right now twiddling their thumbs. waiting for, those people were kind of gone. And so they would have to kind of restart all that up. There's also this other thing, which is HP seems to be killing it with the Elite X3. Now, I'm not saying it's selling like crazy and consumers are clawing to get it. I'm saying, though, the device was well received by us and even other sites who basically say, this is a really cool phone. Too bad about the OS. Yeah. And we just saw HP basically, say, hey, we got another one of these coming out later this year. We're keeping this thing going. Why would Microsoft need to go and compete with that right now?
Microsoft are actually very pleased with HP and their sort of mobile efforts right now. Internally, they're very happy with the Elite X3 and even more happy with the upcoming Elite X3 as well. So it would be weird for Microsoft to go ahead and just compete with them right now when technically the mobile market or Windows 10 mobiles market is all HP's. Microsoft are like, hey, HP, do what you want. We're out this year. We'll provide software updates. We're working on something pretty cool, Seashell, which will be coming later this year. And if you want to release a device that's kind of all Seashell based, which would make sense, the new Elite X3, if it did launch with Redstone 3 and Seashell, would be a pretty awesome device, because if you think about it, that's what the original Elite X3 tried to do. Right. The adverts, it was like the 3-in-1 sort of, it's a PC, it's a phone, it's a laptop. But with Continuum, that idea makes a lot more sense because it actually gives you a desktop environment with like Windows and Action Center and taskbar, system tray and whatnot. Like a full, it will basically look like a normal desktop or laptop, but powered by Windows 10 Mobile.
That was all the, and everybody who used Elite X3 and reviewed it, and I'm not talking about like, sites like ours, I'm talking like more general tech sites, all said the same thing, which was like, it's not ready yet, but everybody sees like how this could be a cool thing. And that's a constant problem, of course, with their mobile ambitions, which is like, it's always this thing that's coming, right? But, I think people see how this could be neat. And once you start seeing what they're doing with Continuum and evolving and everything, like, yeah. So I think that's what's happening. We're reaching out to people if we hear anything different, but for now, I don't think this is true with a Microsoft phone coming. But hey, we'd all love to be proven wrong on this one.
Right, exactly. So, I'm most excited about the Seashell stuff because it will basically fix all of the issues reviewers and consumers had with Continuum when it first launched. It will basically, like I said, look like a normal desktop environment. And thinking about how reviewers would handle that, I'm imagining they'd say things like, yes, it looks like Windows 10, it acts like Windows 10, it's basically Windows 10, except it doesn't have Win32, because as far as we're aware, they're still not bringing the Win32 stuff to Windows 10 Mobile, at least not currently.
Yeah. Although, I still want to, one area I would like to see them, one issue with the lap dock would be the drivers for the trackpad. Like HP basically said, like, we had to do all that ourselves, because if you think about it, Continuum didn't have drivers for our trackpad. It has like support for an external mouse, and you can use the display as a trackpad, but an actual physical trackpad, because then you get to the whole thing with like the laptop doesn't have precision drivers, and so that all needs to be brought over too. And this idea of like plugging peripherals, like people are like, can you plug in a web camera to the laptop, which doesn't have a web camera built into it, which is kind of weird, So this is where I think some of the benefit of having a Windows 10 on ARM for a mobile scenario starts to make a little bit more sense, because you get that stuff with it, right? The ability to plug in peripherals and drivers. Right now, it's there a little bit. I can plug in a Type-C Ethernet, port and get that on my phone, which is pretty neat. You can do it with, of course, USB thumb drives and these other kind of things, but and you can even do it with a mouse and keyboard, but you can't do it with some other, accessories. And so that's one area I think that they could benefit, but maybe as they bring these two systems closer together, that's still in the plan anyway. So we just don't know.
This leads neatly into our next story, HP's commitment to mobile. Now, I've seen a lot of people question HP's sort of commitment to the platform. Like, why are they still making hardware? Why are they releasing app updates? Why are they releasing firmware updates for a platform that's supposedly dead? And the answer basically is enterprise. The HP Elite 3, as me and Dan have said many times before, is an enterprise-focused product. Now, that doesn't mean consumers or prosumers can't buy it. They are fully welcome to buy it. It's on HP's website. They will not say no to you if you want to buy it. But the sort of the concept of the device, its development and its release was all focused around enterprise. Me and Dan reviewed one of the people working on the Elite X3 team at HP quite a while back on this very show. And they explained it to us. They said they went out to all their enterprise customers. They asked what they wanted from a mobile platform. a mobile device, and the end result was a Windows 10 mobile device running, mobile and UWP and having all of that extra Windows sort of enterprise functionality. Whereas Android is less of an enterprise platform and iOS isn't configurable at all, and Apple wouldn't ever give it to HP in the first place. Windows 10 Mobile was kind of the only thing that they had, because Android is like a security nightmare. Think about it. It's like the Play Store's full of malware. Android is easily just exploitable. Whereas not many people are using Windows Phone, let's be fair, and not many people target Windows Phone. The Windows Store doesn't really... You don't really hear of malware apps in the Windows Store, do you? Not yet, at least. So that's basically the main reason. The other reason was the continuum side of things and the 3-in-1 prospect of the device. They wanted to create the ultimate sort of mobile productivity workhorse. And you already had 2-in-1s, which were basically tablets that turned into laptops. But you didn't have tablets that turned into PCs, not really, or being able to be carried in your pocket like a phone. So the Elite X3 was that device. It was the phone, it was the laptop, and it was the desktop. So you could have it in your pocket, plug it into a laptop with the lap dock, or extend it into the desk dock and have it act as a full PC. That was, at the time, not really something that had ever happened before. And now Android does have a sort of continuum environment. It can extend to a desktop-like thing, but with Windows 10 at the end of the day, it's still sort of enterprisey. It's still, enterprise want Windows. They don't really want Android and iOS and stuff. They want to do work. They want to have Windows. And with
in fact, an enterprise has been really bullish on adopting Windows 10. It's one of the fastest adoptions yet. We're seeing companies like HP just making in general a lot of enterprise and business devices. Dell too, of course, Lenovo is still doing it, and it's still the go-to OS for all that kind of stuff.
Right, and it's like HP, they did the research for this device. It wasn't like they woke up one day and said, let's create a device that nobody wants. They did ask their customers, and this is the device that they came up with. It was a Windows 10 mobile device. It wasn't an Android device. They could have very easily gone with Android. It would have made, from a consumer point of view, it would have made more sense to go with Android. They might have actually been able to make a dent and sell a lot more of these than they actually did. But Windows 10 Mobile, they went with it, and apparently it did well enough because they're already working on a second version. So I'm okay with their support. I'm not really questioning it. It makes sense from my point of view why they would go for mobile, for Windows 10 Mobile, and I'm excited for the new Elite X3, if I'm honest.
And I think the thing to keep in mind is that they see this as more as like, I don't want to say an experimental device, but a device that's like of, sign of things to come. But this is what I've been saying for a while. They need to have devices out there to get feedback. Someone asked about what's the actual adoption of this thing. I honestly don't know. It's probably very small at this point, but companies I know are interested in it. We saw it actually at CES. They did announce the barcode scanner, so you can use this in more environments, for medical environments, retail, things where you need to do inventory. And all that seems like it's kind of a snore fest for consumers, right? It's like, I want holograms. But this is actually kind of like a big deal for this. This allows this device, and the other device that was announced, the Pro X2 update, which is a tablet. These things are built with military standard abilities to survive rough environments, dust, liquids, and all that kind of stuff. And this is important for these kind of business and markets, these vertical markets where you need this sort of devices. So I still regard this as experimental. It's in development. They're using it out there to collect information on how people, they get, if you're an enterprise and you are testing 50 of these things, you're going to get a lot of feedback to HP. Like, we liked it, but we had problems with this. The camera wasn't good. We had some stability problems. So these are all things that, HP, and that's why HP, literally every 4 to 6 weeks are putting out new firmware for this thing. And giving it great support. And I think we're just all surprised about, I've said this before in the review too, just out the gate for their first time making a phone in years, this thing is pretty solid. Now, it's not perfect. I personally wish it was a little smaller, but they also talked about that when Michael Park was on our show, saying about, well, they went for the size because that's actually what the people they were talking to wanted. They wanted a 6-inch device. They were making a consumer one. They said they would have made a 5.2-inch device. But, or 5.4, I forgot which was. But, out the gate, this was a pretty solid device, and the support's been fantastic. So, I don't know.
I think it helps people if you look at it like this. Windows 10 Mobile is just an edition of Windows, like all the other editions. You've got Windows 10 Mobile, Windows 10 Cloud, Windows 10 Home, Pro, Enterprise, etc., etc. Windows 10 Mobile is just one edition of Windows that runs on certain devices, and HP went for Windows 10 Mobile for their HP Elite X3. Now, if I stop calling it a phone and start calling it a tablet, that also sort of clears it up a little bit. It's just basically a lightweight tablet for people who want to do editing on the go, who also might want to plug it into a laptop or a desktop every now and then and get real work done. And once, like I said, Seashell hits, that will turn that experience into a much more familiar desktop/laptop experience, as well as bringing lots of awesome improvements to the phone side of things, of course. But the main sort of selling point for Seashell on Windows 10 Mobile, at least, is the Seashell stuff with Continuum. So I don't see the confusion. I know lots of people do, but I'm okay with it.
Well, that's always the struggle right now, which I guess we could fade quickly into why you're still using Windows Phone as a user. Before you go into this, I just want to give reason. I should probably write my own article about this. Like the reason believe it or not, this is going to make people laugh. It's for the apps.
Wow.
No, and it's not because obviously I'm not saying that it has every app I ever wanted. No, I mean obviously there are things that I wish that were on here. I'm saying for instance, I use Tractor, Trackter. It's based on Track TV. I use that to follow all my shows. I use Any Reader, INI space reader, which is basically a RSS feed thing. I use that to follow movies, entertainment, and MMA. I have the Twitter app, which I actually really, really like, even though it kind of crashes on occasion, but still, it's just a beautiful app. And so I'm like most humans. This is where I am different from other tech sites, where the way I use my phone, I actually use my phone, I would say like a normal human uses their phone, which is I have 5 to 8 apps that I use every day, all the time. And I could say that also because I have an iPhone, I have an Android device, and I have 3 pages of apps, and I barely ever use them. Sure, it's nice to have. If I need to go on Amtrak, it's kind of cool that there's an iPhone app for that. I'm not going to deny it. But that's not something I'm using daily. And how I use my phone daily, actually, I like Skype, by the way, also on Windows 10 Mobile. I like Groove a lot. I use Groove all the time, and I really like the way it works on Windows 10 Mobile. I like the way it looks. I like the even the text messaging app, I think just looks nicer. I love the keyboard. I like the emoji. All these little things I just like better. So that's the reason why I stick with it. And it has nothing to do. I could be telling you all this and just go home and use my iPhone every day. I could do that. I do have an iPhone right here. I just finally, by the way, updated my Galaxy S7 to Nougat, which took 4 days because AT&T rates you on you can only check for updates so often. But it's basically because I barely ever use it, and I love Samsung's hardware, but Android kills me. So I don't know. But
it's funny.
That's the reason.
If you think about it hard enough, the apps issue on Windows 10 Mobile is really the only issue it has.
Yes.
And the fact that Microsoft doesn't sell its hardware anymore and whatnot. But
there's still some performance and stability things, I would say. But
I'd say it's pretty stable at this point with the Creators Update. I'm not really having any issues with Windows 10 Mobile as much as I was with the original launch version of Windows 10 Mobile.
Sure.
But it's the apps issue for most people is the only thing that makes Windows 10 Mobile a bad sell, apart from obviously lacking hardware and whatnot. Because, like you said, I'm fine with all the apps on Windows 10 Mobile. In matter of fact, I don't like some of the apps on iOS. I hate the Reddit app on iOS. I prefer
the YouTube apps.
Or the YouTube apps is rubbish as well. I prefer MyTube and
MyTube's amazing. Yeah.
on Windows 10 Mobile. They just work far better and have much more functionality. GroupMe on Windows and iOS is not as good as it is on Windows 10 Mobile. Some apps are better. Of course, Skype is a little bit more feature-filled at this current point, but that's just for now. I'm pretty sure Microsoft would rather their UWP app to be the best version, and that just takes time, I guess, because they, like we said, when they originally changed all their Skype plans for Windows 10 Mobile, they were building that app from the ground up, and that will obviously take some time.
MSN News is better too. Actually, a lot of the core apps, even the weather app, the default weather app on Windows 10 Mobile is better than on any other device I've used. I don't know. I also I'm a huge fan of single login, the single sign-in user thing. So basically, when I buy an app and use it on my PC, then I open it onto my phone, it's already logged in, right? Twitter does this. my any reader does this. Like I can put any reader on any device right now, and the first time I run it, it's just going to bring in my feed. I don't have to do anything. Like now that's probably because I'm part of the ecosystem, and you talk about that too in your article. But like for me, that's a big deal. Like I love that convenience of like a lot of the devices. I feel like I have to sign in 9,000 times. And I realize that's not something everybody does, right? You usually get one device and you just keep it for 2 years, but that's just one thing why I just find it a lot easier.
Yeah, one of the issues I walked into with the iPhone article that I wrote was on my Windows phone, you sign in with your Microsoft account, then every app is signed into it. You launch Mail, it's signed in. You launch Skype, it's signed in. You launch Xbox, it's signed in. On iPhone, once you download all the Microsoft apps, you have to sign into every single one,
annoying.
one by one.
Yeah,
it's just so bad. But that's just one of the sort of benefits of being in the Microsoft ecosystem on Windows 10 Mobile. I'm the same as Dan. I'm all in on the ecosystem. I love the universal platform. I like the synergy, the syncing between devices and whatnot. That's just pretty much the reason I'm using Windows Phone. I like the start screen. I still believe the start screen is the best home screen experience on a mobile platform right now. I know you can customize Androids to be whatever you want it to be, but Android I do not really enjoy at all. iOS you can't really customize at all in any way, shape or form. So Windows Phone does it the best. There's live tiles, which when they work great. I think the Creators Update fixes a lot of the live tile issues actually. So I love that. I love being, because you can have like 3 columns or 4 columns depending on the screen size and whatnot, and different
even the
colors.
Action Center. Yeah. I just like the notification center the best.
Oh my god. iOS is the worst in the whole world at
we talked about this before, because on Skype
bad.
It'll give you, if someone decide to have a Skype conversation with you while you're not responding, you're going to have 10 Skype responses.
Right.
And it's just like...
the notifications on iOS themselves are just confusing, because on the lock screen, they show up on the lock screen. You tap it, it doesn't do anything. You have to hard press it, but then to open it, you have to press it again. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot of them don't have the quick response, which Windows. It's funny. Windows 10 is actually, I would say, a lot more standardized for things like notifications and like responding to things like Skype and GroupMe allow you to inline respond in a notification, which for me is huge. Like I find it so convenient when I get a text message or something. I just like and I realize Android does this too now, but it's a little bit all over the place, and it's a lot more consistent. Now, I will say, like, one thing I think that does bother people, of course, are things like, and it's pretty important, is like the Facebook apps and Facebook and Messenger people complain about. And I wholeheartedly agree there. And the problem there, of course, is Facebook is using their in-house developing tools, Meta, which is a company they bought that allows them to do sort of cross-platform, stuff. And that's what they're using. That's why, for instance, actually, the Facebook apps don't have the single sign-in feature. So if you install Facebook on any PC, you're going to always have to log into it for the first time. And that's why those apps just act and behave differently. It's because they're not true native apps. And that bothers me, because it's like that they're clearly not as good. And they're a lot more acceptable on PC, because PC has a lot more, horsepower to make that app work. But on mobile is where people are like, this thing is slow, it's kind of unresponsive, and I totally get that. I'm not going to disagree at all. Instagram's kind of like that. I would say Instagram is a lot better.
Instagram basically performs like I would expect it to perform on Windows.
Just the scrolling bothers me. It's janky how it scrolls.
Also the story videos are really sort of laggy. But apart from that, it performs way faster than the Facebook and Messenger apps. They take like 8 seconds to launch, whereas Instagram's basically open when you press it.
Yeah, but like you see this issue, like I know a lot of people I've been reading about recently talking about Snapchat. On Android, it's terrible. The way it uses photos and everything, people really do not like it compared. This argument has been not against for Windows Phone, of course. It's been saying that why people are switching to Instagram for doing their stories and everything like that, because the app works a lot better on Android. So other platforms have this problem too. And it's funny because Facebook apps, if you go and read the store reviews on Android and iOS, are littered with people who hate the experience there. So there's a general Facebook issue, I would say, when it comes to mobile apps. But I would say, it's definitely worse on Windows 10. And I really wish, I think Microsoft at this point, you can't look a gift horse in the mouth. They're not going to yell at Facebook to be like, no, use our stuff. They're just probably real happy Facebook's making these apps and committed to it. But I would just love to see Microsoft go. It was funny because Microsoft used to make the Facebook app
right
for Facebook, and people still complain all the time. That's where our Seems Faster thing always came from. But like now it's funny because people are like, we talked about this. People are like, I wish Facebook would just make the app. Why is Microsoft? They're screwing it up. Yeah. Facebook's all right, we'll do it. We'll make an app. And everyone's like, this thing sucks. Microsoft should make the app, or it was better back then. And I'm just like, yeah. But yeah, these are definitely issues, that sort of need to be figured out. Same with the camera thing. The camera gap between what, the Lumia team did and what third parties can do is too wide. Again, you don't see this on Android. These companies like Samsung, LG, Huawei have all really stepped up their game and now make really good cameras, sometimes better than, what Google's doing themselves. And so that still needs to be addressed because photography is still a big deal for people with mobile phones. And until they figure that out, I'd also like to see the equalizer come back. I use the Lumia at the gym. I'm just like, I forgot about the equalizer. It's such a good... The sound quality, by the way, in the Lumias are still the best for headphone use over iPhone. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that. I'm committing to it. It's true, though.
There is one issue around the Facebook app issue. Just delete Facebook. I did that, and I've not had an issue with Facebook since.
And that's why you and I are like, yeah, we don't mind using Windows 10 because we both don't use Facebook. And actually, if I do, I use an app called Slim Social, which if you're one of those people, go get Slim Social. It's one word. It's a free app. And it's basically a sophisticated web wrapper, but it does a lot of native stuff too. For instance, it gives you dark theme, which is pretty awesome, actually.
Oh, wow.
It can also remove ads. It can also center things. And it can auto-sort post by timeline, which is brilliant because nice. I hate how Facebook just gives you stuff on like I can't figure out Facebook. I go on every few days and I'm like, one day I see a post, like it'll be even like an hour later, like, oh, that's why I wanted to respond to my friend. It was their birthday. And then I open up Facebook again and it's just like, where did that thing go? And it's just like there's no rhyme or reason. I don't know. I know I'm getting old, but Facebook's a nightmare for me, but yeah, that's why you and I are a little bit more appreciative. We also don't use Snapchat,
right?
So
I have a Snapchat account. I
do too.
Never posted on it ever in my life. I might get Snapchat glasses just for Build, and then I'll just Snapchat the whole thing.
They're so.
I want to get beaten up at Build. I'm like, why are you in Snapchat? That's not on Windows Phone. Punch.
Yeah, no one will care because you'll still be in the minority at Build with the Windows Phone.
I'm not bringing Snapchat to Build. Trust me. Yeah. Right, this is our last... We are running over time. This is our last story. I sort of re-reviewed the Surface Book i5 this week. So the original Surface Book that came out in 2015, I bought the lowest end model because I was just not waiting for the high-end one. I just wanted to get the Surface Book as soon as possible. And I used that for basically the entire year. So it came out in the UK in, I think, February or March 2016. So it has been around a year since I bought mine. And... overall, I've had a fairly positive experience with the Surface Book. I've mentioned this in the review. Mine has a slight bend to it now, but it's an odd thing that not many people have suffered from. But I think it's due to the fact that I'll often have the Surface Book on the desk closed, but then I'll have other laptops that I'm playing with and stuff. Then just to save space, I'll put that laptop on the other laptop, which most people do if they have multiple laptops. It's not ever really been an issue. But considering the Surface Book's odd hinge, where the screen doesn't sit flush with the base, that allows weight to sort of sit on top of it. And as a result, over time, it has bent slightly, very slightly. It's not really noticeable unless you point it out. But I've noticed in the last few weeks, I'm having phantom touches on the screen, which I'm almost certain is due to the fact that the screen has slightly bent towards the base where the hinge is. So that should be covered by warranty, and mine's still in warranty for another few weeks, so I will get it replaced. But it is just an issue that I walked into. The other issue is that I often find that it's an Intel Core i5 with 8 gigabytes of RAM, which should be plenty fine for most students and whatnot, and light artists who want to do things in Photoshop. But I noticed browsing with Edge, with several heavy websites like TweetDeck and whatever else, you will find Edge hangs and crashes a lot. I find this the case when I have TweetDeck open and a YouTube video playing at like 4K or 1080p. It will be like, what are you doing? Help, and it will sort of crash. But for my general use, the Surface Book i5 has basically been the best laptop I've ever owned. I do mostly writing and video editing, and the Surface Book i5 can handle 1080p video editing pretty much fine. It can't do 4K because it doesn't have the dedicated graphics card. I'm not really ever doing 4K.
Even with it, it's a struggle.
Right.
Yeah, 4K is a whole other...
Right, exactly. But it does the lighter video editing fine. I'm never really rendering more than 20 minutes on the Surface. And even then, I have a desktop and I do the podcast rendering on the desktop because that takes at least half an hour.
Sure.
On the Surface Book, it would take over an hour. And yeah, so I would definitely...
Plus you'll just hear nothing but hissing.
Exactly, because it gets really loud. But at the end of my review, I sort of compared the Surface Book pricing with laptops on the market today, because I ask a lot of people asking me, should I get a Surface Book now? Because the Surface Book 2 is rumored to be coming out later this year, so you still get a whole year out of it, and it wouldn't be worth it. But looking at the pricing of the Surface Book, it's $1,300 for the low end model. You can get a better spec laptop for slightly less than that from the Dell XPS line. And
even the Samsung laptop is $1,349, and it has a dedicated GPU and a Core i7,
right? Exactly,
and 16 gigs of RAM. So it's like,
and even at the high end, the high end Surface Book, the non-performance based Surface Book is I think $3,200, whereas the XPS 15, the highest end XPS 15 is $2,500, and that comes with an Intel Core i7 Kaby Lake with 32 gigabytes of RAM compared to 16, a 1050 Ti GPU compared to the whatever it is in the Surface Book, the 940 or whatever, and just a 4K screen, whereas the Surface Book I think is like 3.5K, maybe. I can't remember what it is. It's cheaper and way more powerful to get an XPS 15, and you'd be a fool to buy a Surface Book at this point, I think, anyway. So in my review, I basically say, don't buy it. Wait for the Surface Book 2, or get an XPS or something.
Yeah, I mean, and this was on purpose by Microsoft. Microsoft never wanted to sell what they would call the ultimate PC while also undercutting all their OEM partners in pricing, because that would be disastrous. For their partners would just be up in arms. Meanwhile, here we are in 2017. I could be if you want if you want a Surface Book because you draw or you do that kind of stuff, and you want something similar, HP Spectre X360 15-inch, or even a 13-inch with a 4K display. Way more affordable, and it's a really good device. I would recommend that device just by itself, that kind of thing. And that's a cool thing that HP can go out there and say that, right? That they can create a device that's as good quality-wise, but also give you more value for the money. Now, if you still want the Surface because of some specific features, or you just really, it's a prestige thing too, and that's fine. That's how Apple sells things. Razer does the same thing. Go find me any sale on a Razer. You're not, they don't put their stuff on discount. But they're kind of a prestige company where they're just we just make the best, and we're going to charge you a lot for it. So join us or don't, and that's fine. It's okay to have that world, and PC needed that part of that world for a long time because they were always just mediocre PCs. That's why people would go and switch to Apple. They're I just want a really nice computer, and now we have that option. So that's the reason why, value wise, that's why when bring it up again, Surface, Book with the performance base, best laptop you can buy. But even there, there's caveats. If you really just need raw power, XPS 15, right? Nothing's going to beat that thing right now.
Right.
Unless you want a giant gaming PC.
One of the reasons I got the low-end model was, for one, I didn't want the dedicated graphics card, which I know is a weird thing to say, but in the reviews I saw for the Surface Book and what people were saying on the internet, when you detached the screen, it would flash quickly, it'd go black, and then pop back up on the screen. And I hated that. I thought that was just a ridiculous thing. So with the non-GPU models, because obviously that flashes the computer switching from the GPU to the Intel-based one, the one that's built into the motherboard. But with the non-GPU, you don't get that issue. So when you press the lock button, it comes off without the screen flickering or anything. That was an issue.
I gotta test that. Yeah,
I think it might still be an issue as well. I don't think there's something they can fix.
Some of it, if it's actually, so the thing is, if it's actually using the GPU, it won't even let you detach.
Right. Well,
so if you have Photoshop Elements open,
if you've not got a Surface Book nearby, if you try it, I'm pretty sure you'll see it. We'll try it in the comments bit of the show. But it definitely was a thing that I just didn't want that to happen on mine, so I purposely didn't go for the dedicated graphics card.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's I barely ever detach mine.
Right, exactly, and then I realized I don't detach it anyway, and this was a stupid idea.
It's actually a fair thing. There's one reason why I like the Spectre, because the Spectre, to go to pen mode, you just rotate it. Mm-hmm. Now, on paper, someone's going well, you can just rotate it, but the Surface Book, you just detach it. Those in words sound the same. They're not in real life, though. Because in real life, just rotating the screen around and busting out the pen is way easier than... And I know it's not a lot of steps to detaching the screen, pulling it off, rotating around, clicking it, and putting it back down. I'm telling you, it affects your usage, I don't really use the pen mode as much because it's a little more inconvenient on Surface Book. Whereas the Spectre, I find myself doing a little bit more with it, even though I'm not a pen user, which is, of course, another issue. That's why I'm actually interested also in that Porsche laptop. Although I don't think that does have a pen. No, it does have a pen. Yeah, that's right. But that does things differently. So that can rotate all the way around as well, I think, into a tablet, but they can also like twist, or it does some other thing. But they've like solved kind of the problem with the Surface Book. And these usability things are super important. And that's why I still have a tough time when people tell me what's the best laptop. It's like, even like the pen thing, like to some people, like including myself, the pen thing doesn't matter. When I tell people like the Samsung, it's awesome. They're like, does it have a touchscreen? No. Like, oh, no buy, I get some people like that. That's a critical thing for them. They're like, it needs to have a touchscreen. For myself, on a 15-inch laptop, I never touch the touchscreen. I could care less. But, that's what makes the world go around. So you got to think about these things.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I would not recommend buying the Surface Book i5 if pricing is an issue, like as a concern.
Unless they go on sale here and there, right. So it's still great.
Or if you want, because I know you say the Xperia 15. The Spectre 15 is a great pen thing, but I mean, if you want the best pen experience, the Surface is still the best.
Possibly. See, I'm actually not in a position to be able to
make qualify.
Yeah, because like they feel kind of the same to me, and I like the pen that HP made is basically the Surface Pen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's very in terms of weight, balance, size, it's very similar. So to me, they feel the same, but yeah, I would need like a pro artist to actually, kind of, talk about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good problem to have. We have right now in 2017 with just too many good laptops. But I will say though, using the Surface Book as a straight up laptop, which is how I use it, it's still such a good laptop. Right. It just has to do with the ergonomics, the way your palms rest on it. It's got a wider, like a longer base. The typing, touchpad are just still those little things.
I will probably still be taking my Surface Book to build over the Spectre or whatever.
Yeah. Someone asking, do I still recommend Windows phones to people? I mean, this is like, this is a hard thing to answer because like I know some people who use a Windows phone because they're just normal people who just,
me too.
Everything we're talking about, they don't care. They're just like, I need a phone that makes phone calls, has all my contacts, it can take photos. Like for that person, how do you like convince them an iPhone is going to be so much better? Like, it's hard. It's like, well, you can download Snapchat and all these apps, and they don't care. They're like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to use that stuff. That's a percentage of the world out there, So it's like, I can't, tell people no.
The people who I don't recommend Windows Phone to all people. The people who I do recommend Windows Phone to are people who don't use Snapchat for one. But currently, right now, I have nightmares about this all the time. WhatsApp is a big deal for a lot of people in the UK, and a lot of the people who I refer to, Windows Phone to are WhatsApp users. My girlfriend is one of them, for example. She uses a Lumia 950, has basically everything she wants on there. Facebook, I know the Facebook app sucks, but it's better on the 950, Instagram, and WhatsApp. WhatsApp is probably the most used app on her phone, and if that went away, then I think I'd have no choice but to...
Sure.
She'd have to go somewhere else, because all of her basically how she communicates with people is via WhatsApp, and... I mean, it would be a big deal for me as well. I don't use WhatsApp as much. I much prefer SMS, but not many people do SMS anymore.
But we use GroupMe now all the time.
Right, we use GroupMe. But yeah, WhatsApp would be a big deal for a lot of people in the UK. Like, I think that may be one of the reasons why I still see a lot of Windows phones in the UK, because it has WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is basically how people in the UK communicate. But if WhatsApp went away on Windows Phone, that would be a big problem.
Sure.
Even for me.
Everybody has their threshold. We saw a lot of people, like when a bank would leave,
right?
They were like, I need this app, and like that's totally fine. Like, there's no way I'm going to convince that person like switch banks, dude. like that. It's like, come on, obviously. So, but this is the tough problem with technology, where a lot of people, a lot of tech sites, for instance, a lot of people are like, oh, you want the best smartphone? Get the brand new iPhone 7 Plus. Like, okay, not everybody can afford an $800 phone or $900 phone. Like, that's actually a lot of people in this world can't afford that. And so it's weird to tell people like, oh, the best phone, So you always have to, this is the problem with technology. You always have to talk to the person and get to know them, what they're going to use it for, what their budget is. And, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. I say we wrap it up. Next week, we'll talk about how I ordered a GTX 1080 Ti today. I'm very excited about that. And we'll talk more about laptops and maybe phones too. So that does it for this week. Remember, you can tune in every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We do this live. Join in on Beam and YouTube. And now we're going to do questions and comments. And if you want to join in for that, it won't be on the recorded podcast. But thank you for everybody for participating. And on Thursdays, we still do our Microsoft Gaming Libations, where me, Zach, and Jez get together and play the latest game. This week we did, what was it, Wildlands?
Yeah, Ghost Recon
Wildlands, which we all had a blast with, and we liked it so much we stopped the stream and then we still played for another half hour. We actually did fly an airplane and parachuted, and which was awesome. I think we want to do this again next week because that game was just ridiculously amount of fun. But join us for that, where it's just a lot more relaxed and chill. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino. That's RUBINO, and follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. And hit us up there with your questions and whatnot. And thank you for listening. Take care, everybody. It's offline.
The two people have said hi. They can see me now, and you.
Are you sure?
I'm gonna guess. I just saw us, unless it's gone off since. I'm gonna pull it up again.
Let's see, I'm checking in Edge. Nope. None of my browsers show it. You lie.
No, I can see us live. And yeah, no, you're wrong, Dan. Maybe it takes a while for the stream to reach over to the American lands.
Okay.
I don't know, honestly.
So I have two browsers where it doesn't work, but
it works here, and that's all that matters.